Welcome, readers. Today I'm interviewing author Phoenix Williams about her paranormal romance series, Queens of Beast. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and thank you for downloading this week's book chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Every week we get bookish with roundtable book discussions, 5-minute shelf bites, interviews, and more. Subscribe to our newsletter so that you don't miss out on any of this book nerd awesomeness. If you'd like to email in feedback or questions, reach out to me at info@shelfaddiction.com or call in and leave an internet voice message via SpeakPipe. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shelf Addiction. The links for everything related to today's episode, including Phoenix Williams' social media, are below in the show notes. If you know someone who may enjoy this episode, please share it with them today. Before we get started, let me tell you a bit about today's interview guest. Based out of Illinois, Phoenix Williams is an erotic romance, paranormal romance, and street lit author and lover of all things quirky. She is a Jane of all trades. She's an award-nominated author, a CEO, producer, screenwriter, also a journal contributor for the AABMC. As an author, she has built a brand that specializes in romance and self-acceptance. I had a great time interviewing Phoenix. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I know you'll enjoy this conversation as well. Let's jump into the interview. Hi, Phoenix. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I definitely appreciate it. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's nice and hot, so it's summer. It's summer officially.
Yes, it's 1,000,000 degrees here in Chicago, and I'm frying.
Yes, I'm in the Metro Detroit area, so I understand. I am excited to share about your book, Queens of Beast, The Life, Love, and Death of Adara Marshall. And before we get into that, let's learn a bit about you. Are you ready to jump in?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. So share with us what books you're reading right now.
Oh, what am I not reading? Okay, so I'm reading a lot of arcs from some of my peers in the industry. So I'm reading Bachelor in Trouble by Shy August right now, and then I'm reading Judas by Six Jennings. And those books aren't scheduled to come out till the fall, so I'm very excited. I got a chance to go ahead and read those before everybody else.
Are you enjoying them both so far?
Oh, absolutely! Like these ladies, they make me want to quit writing.
Oh no,
you're so good.
That's awesome. I love when you get a great arc. It's awesome when it happens. It's a fun experience.
Absolutely. And the other book I'm reading right now, which is really good, is Sugar Hill by Tamika Newhouse. And that one's not coming out until September, but it's really good as well.
What genre is that last one?
Sugar Hill is like a contemporary romance.
Okay. So do you think you have any books or authors that you would say have possibly influenced your writing style as you've become, a more fine-tuned author?
Absolutely. So number one, Mary B. Morrison.
I love her.
And I had a chance to meet her, and I was like, "Oh my God, my soul!" But when I was younger, I was sneaking and read her books because I'm like, okay, it wasn't like something you would see every day, like a Black author with Black characters. So I would go and I would get her books and I would read it. And my mom's like, "What are you reading?" And I'm like, "Nothing." Her books were not for my age range, and I learned a whole lot. But that was like when I first realized, oh, okay, I could probably do this too. And then definitely when it comes to the paranormal, T.S. Joyce is like a legend in the short paranormal genre. She's been killing the game for quite a long time now.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like one particular book or series that you recommend by her?
Oh gosh. Okay, so you have to start at the beginning because her
okay.
goes to like her series goes to like generations. So you would have to start with the Lumberjack Bears. That's where you're going to have to start at. And then like she goes through these different. It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot going on. It's like we're not.
Oh my God.
We're at the grandkids now. It's a whole lot going on.
Oh my gosh. So is that like a year's worth of reading? You're talking about like a solid year of reading?
Yeah. She comes out with a book every month and I'm like, how do you live? I don't know how this happens, but I'll be waiting. I'm waiting on them books to come
Wow.
out.
That's awesome. Well, that's a strong recommendation. I may have to look that up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, do you have a few favorite authors in addition to her that you always recommend?
Oh yes. Okay. So Zuri Day is really, really good. Marina J is another one. Tamika Newhouse is always one. Of course, Mary B. Morrison, Zane,
Hmm.
Omar Tyree. I'm going classic now. Terry Woods.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are like the ones that I usually like when they put out a book, I'll go ahead and buy it.
See, I hate to say it's been decades since I've read Omar Tyree. Is he still publishing new books?
Yeah, but he's doing it like once a year, once every couple of years. Like he kind of reminds me of like Dr. Dre, where you put out that album
Hmm.
whenever people are still
Okay.
gonna buy it.
All right, bet. I know they do because I mean, he's good and he's like old school. Like he's been around a long time, just like Mary B. Morrison and a few others you mentioned.
I think once you get to like a certain level, like a certain status, you can put out a book whenever you feel like.
Hmm. Well, since you read that wheelhouse, I'm curious. Did you ever read Elin Harris?
I did when I first started reading books by Black authors back when I was like in junior high, and I go to the library and pick them up. Haven't read his stuff in years.
Yeah.
But I did read it. I like more edgy, like shoot 'em up, bang bang, or there's a whole lot of whole lot of drama going on and all that kind of stuff. But now, I think if I read his books, I would appreciate them a whole lot more because they're so layered. Back when I was
Hmm.
16, I didn't care about no layering. Get to the action. But now, 15 years later, I do care about like the depth of the characters and the layering of the stories and all that.
Let's talk a little bit about your series, and that is called Queen of the Beast is the series, but this book is the life, love, and death of Adara Marshall. So for those that don't know, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yes, so Queens of Beast is all about a group of ladies who left America 13 years ago and their grandmother was murdered and now they're back to America. And we're in this town called Hellfire Valley and there's secrets and there's all kind of monsters beneath the surface, and we're digging through all the town's, dirt, trying to figure out essentially who killed Grandma. But in this whole time, there's other stuff that's going on as well that affects the ladies personally. That was a story
Hmm.
about growth, about transformation, about dying and being resurrected.
Especially throwing a whole bunch of monsters and or beast, depending on who you ask, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yes. So let's go back to the beginning. How did Queens of Beast come into existence?
I watch a lot of anime. So a couple of years ago, I was sitting here like, oh, it'd be so cool if someone took like an anime or manga and put it in like regular novel form. And so I had a story of a lady named Adara, and she was going to go back home and become a monster. And then as time went by, it finally evolved into the series that it is. Um, and eventually I got the courage to go ahead and write it. But it all started because I was up one night binge watching some anime.
That's kind of fun. Okay, so you got to tell me, how did you decide to go kind of with short form with this series versus like, I don't know, a 400-page book?
So I was like, okay, well, you know what? I could tell this story in 30,000 words or less for Adara because she's just the teaser. She's the catalyst to the whole thing. So let's go ahead and get her, in there. I didn't think anyone was going to read this book. But now, as we're progressing along, each book has gotten significantly longer
Okay.
than that first one. I'm working on a third one now. The first book, Adara's book, was like, what, 30,000, 32,000 words? This third one's about to be almost 60,000.
Ooh, okay.
I didn't plan it like this. I was like, oh, it's going to be just, short, 6 books, all of them about 30,000 words until I realized I did not. I created this whole thing with, the parents and this government agency, and now it's like, okay, there has to be a war. Wars don't last 10 pages. I gotta go ahead and it's, I really wish I would have thought about this a
Oh
lot
no.
more.
So you did not plot it out then. You're a pantser.
Yeah, I am a pantser. Now I'm not. Now I
Okay.
planned that sucker out because we're 3 books in. But when I first started, I was like, outline for what? I don't need no outline. I got this.
Well, I would love to know how you kind of determined what types or how many types, or, you know, if you should have a few or a lot of different types of beast in your world, because it's a lot. So I'd like to know like how you decided to expand so far into all the different shifters.
When I first started thinking about the world, I said, okay, we're gonna have this town, and this town's gonna be like, your nucleus. You're gonna look at it and say, okay, this is what a shifter world would be, but it's all in one town. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't want to have just, your lions, your tigers, and your bears. Oh my. I wanted to make sure that we had different species that were represented because the world is so big, and we're just looking at one small little town of 2,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up having, we did have lions and we did have bears, but
Yeah.
there's foxes and ravens, and a couple of towns over, there's a leopard. There's a whole lot going on. But I wanted to represent, a lot. And when we talk about the main female characters, we're moving mythical with those. And so
Yes. It's a
that's what
nice little surprise at the end.
I
I'm just going to say that and drop that there. That's it.
It surprises me that people are surprised at the end. But I'm like, look at the cover.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And it's like, oh, the cover makes complete sense now. Yeah, I get it. So the cover is a clue, guys. It is a big clue. So,
Yes, each cover in this series, and for every book in this series, it gives you a clue on which mythical beast may or may not be present in
mhm.
that following book.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the cover because the cover art is really catching, and vibrant. Did you design that or did you help design it?
I told the lady I had to do it, her name is Ty. I said, look, I want just give me something that looks edgy and has, that feels like, oh man, I'm about to read a paranormal. And she came up with that. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so whatever she came up with, I was able to was work the cover art into the book. Because
Hmm.
Azara's final form wasn't originally that color, but I did go ahead and just work it in there. She did a really good job, and I appreciate her so much.
Okay. So, did you experience any challenges while bringing this series to life this far? Like, I don't know, research or writer's block or anything like that?
When it came to the second book, that's when I started to realize I might not be able to do 30,000 words because you're trying to create an entire world. Before I wrote paranormal, I wrote erotica and I wrote romance. And so that's dealing in the real world. You don't really have to think so outside the box. When you get to paranormal and fantasy, you really have to pay attention to every little thing. How does a shifter work? Break
Hmm.
that all the way down. Are they born this way? Are they not born this way? Can someone turn into one? People could not turn into one. Is there magic in this world? And so just breaking down all those many facets and then having such a large cast of characters, that's been the main struggle.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. Especially in the first book, you start to meet a lot of people, and actually, as a big supporting cast like that can be kind of fun because eventually you'll get around to a little bit of everybody. So that can be fun to read.
It was definitely fun to write. I will say that. At first, I was like, "Oh man, it might be a little too much," because most of the time in my past books, it was only like 3 to 4 characters. And this one, I think
Hmm.
last time I counted, we were like at 13, 14, 15 characters.
Hmm. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that you used to write erotica because with, paranormal romance, obviously in this book anyway, romance is a pretty strong part of the book. So it's just as much romance as fantasy, I think, in my opinion. So I would love to know what you think. You know, I know it's always subjective, but I would love to know what you think the heat level is on this book on a scale of like 1 to 10. Like 1 being Christian fiction where, you know, nothing happens, and 10 being like full on erotica with all the kinks. Where do you think this falls?
If we're basing this off of my past books, it's a 5. It's a 5 at
Okay.
the most. Some people are like, "Oh, it's so hot and spicy," and I'm like, "You haven't read the other series I wrote."
Oh no.
Uh,
That's good to know.
but yeah, I would say because this one I was trying to keep it where if high schoolers wanted to read it, they could, and it wouldn't be anything they haven't seen before or haven't heard before. So
Especially in 2019. So yeah.
exactly, exactly with the internet and all that. So I'm
Hmm.
trying to keep it like PG-13. So I would say heat level's about a 4 or 5.
Okay. Because I thought it was kind of spicy at parts. I'm sitting there. Okay, let me tell you when I read your book. So I'm on my way back on a little road trip, and it was like I don't know, a 6 hour drive. So I'm like halfway back. I'm like, oh, I need to start this book. So my husband's driving. I'm reading this book. I flew through that book, by the way. It was really fast to read. But at times I'm like, oh. And I'm like, Kevin, you won't believe what's going on in this book. He's like, yeah. So I'm like, ooh, a little spicy, but you know, nothing outlandish, you know, nothing too crazy, but it was nice. It was a good amount of heat. I liked it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your heroine of this book, Adara. She's pretty unique. What did you like most about her?
I like that Adara didn't care. Like, I think there's so much power for women in nonchalance. We just need to know how to harness it. And so Adara doesn't care what people think about her. She doesn't care if people are scared. She doesn't care if, she has to murder you in the middle of a diner. She doesn't care about any of that. She's just
Mm-hmm.
gonna just don't get in her way. And I love writing characters like that because even though there was a love story in this, that wasn't the reason she came back to town. She didn't go there
No.
looking for a love. She ended up getting, the attention of a few people, but that's not what she was really there for. And so for her to be able to find love and just like out of the blue and still keep her personality, that was just so much fun for me to write.
I really appreciate that because I like a strong leading lady, and sometimes when they find love, they get like stupid, and she didn't get stupid.
I
You
know what you're
know?
saying. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Because you know, nothing is that good if you know what I'm talking about. But you know, okay. What did you think you liked least about her character?
I didn't like the fact that she just couldn't, and I bring this up in a future book, so I'm trying to word this right. She lost the mission along the way. The mission was
Mm,
always to come and find out what happened to grandma. Somewhere along the way, we stopped dealing with that. And we
mm.
started dealing with other things. And it wasn't until the very end where we got a hint as to what happened with grandma. But I did that purposely because a lot of times as women, and even the strongest woman, you'll have a plan, you'll be working your plan, you meet a man, you get distracted.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think we've all experienced that, so we got to give her a little pass.
yeah, I just hate that she did that. We bring that up in the future book that she forgot the mission.
Wow, she got called out, probably. Okay. Well, let's talk about the guys. So there seem to be two guys kind of vying for Dara's affection. So we have Daniel and Alonzo. So can you tell us why Adara likes them so much? Kind of like without spoilers.
They're very different. When she meets Daniel first while she's trying to eat breakfast, and he's bold and brash, and he's just like her. Like he doesn't care. And the thing is, he is just like her. He is the male version of her when she first gets to town, where she doesn't care about anybody's feelings, so she's gonna take out whoever stands in her way. And so she connects with him on that level. Alonzo is who she's becoming as she stays in Hellfire Valley. Still strong, still bold, still, aggressive, but has, some compassion. All have a whole lot of flaws. Everybody's a monster in this little trio. But she can see bits and pieces of herself and connect with them on those levels.
Definitely. I think maybe that's what's got her pulling in both ways for a bit. But, as with all love triangles, it gets worked out in the end, thank God. That's all I'm going to say. Thank God. Okay. So I think we've covered Adara's book pretty well. I know there's a second book out in the series called Taming Revi, who we meet at the very end of that book. Do you want to share a little bit about what we kind of can expect in the next installment? Keeping it spoiler free, obviously.
Absolutely. Taming Revi. So I tell people this when it comes to these books. You have Adara, she's a monster. And then you have Revi, and she's deranged. And when you read that book, you're reading it as if you are in the mind of someone who's a little crazy or a whole lot crazy. So it's a roller coaster ride with Revi. And at times you don't know where she's going or what she's going to end up doing because she's forced into a situation at the end of the first book. Now she has to kind of deal with the repercussions of her actions and the actions of another person. And still we have Grandma's murder is not solved, so she has to go ahead and try to do her part. But this is more of an internal journey for Revi, trying to figure out who she is and who she needs to become. Adara's more like an external thing. She's in this town where all these things are happening to her, and Revi's book, Revi's happening to herself.
Okay, that sounds very interesting to me. I'm going to have to take a look and see what Revi is up to and expect a little bit of crazy along the way, I guess.
Oh, yes. A whole lot of crazy.
Okay. So how long is this series? Like, what do you have in store beyond, you've mentioned book 3. When does that come out and what's, in the future?
So book 3 is coming out on August 24th. It'll be out. And then we have book 4 coming out in, I believe it's the end of September, book 5 in October, and then the last book, book 6, is coming out in November.
Oh my gosh, you're knocking these out. You're like trying to do that one a month thing.
The only reason why is because I want to be past these girls because I have 2 spinoffs. And so these spinoff series are going to be huge, and I want to hurry and get to those.
Thank you so much for sharing Queens of the Beast with us. That sounded really fun. I'm sure everyone will want to check that out. The links for everything are below in the show notes, guys. So if you want to check out book 1 and 2, available now, you can go ahead and click that and find it. So let's move on to the lightning round. Are you ready for that?
I am.
Okay, so let me run the rules down real quick. So it's 60 seconds. I have a bunch of questions. I usually say 60, but people get freaked out because they never answer 60. Some are book related, some are not. Some are questions that are open-ended, and others require you to pick one or the other. The only one rule I have is that on those questions, you must choose. You cannot say neither, and you can't say both.
Oh. Okay.
Yes, would you rather style. No other options.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah, so are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Read 5 pages per day or 5 books per week.
5 books per week.
Physical books or ebooks?
Ebooks.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Name a book that you've read in one sitting.
Bachelorette in Heat by Shy August.
Beer or wine?
Beer all the way.
If you were forced to live your life as one of your characters, who would it be?
Oh, God. Oh, man. Okay. Oh, so many. I think I'm going to choose the world that's less dangerous. I'm going to say I would pick Adara.
Okay. Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Dark chocolate.
Werewolves or vampires?
Werewolves.
Where is your favorite place to read?
On my couch.
Time's up.
Oh man, look at me. Okay.
Yeah, that minute goes really fast.
It does.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for doing that. I always get a good, laugh out of all of those, answers. I love it and the audience loves it. So thanks a lot. Is there anything else you'd like to share about, what you've got going on or this series before we end this conversation?
Yes. So I have, like I said, Queens of Beast 3 is coming out on August 24th. But before that, I have Exposed, the Club Sugar novel, coming out on July 30th. That is part of my erotica line of books. So if you're into erotic romance, that's the book for you.
Ooh, wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. I guess that's it. We're going to close this out for today. Be sure to follow Phoenix on her social media accounts and be sure to pick up a copy of one or more of her titles. A few of them are listed in the show notes. It's been a pleasure, Phoenix. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, guys. And until next time, happy reading. Take care, everybody. If you enjoyed today's book chat episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. You can follow me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. Most importantly, you can share this podcast with friends and family that enjoy all things bookish, including author interviews. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.